Car dealers in town could soon have to comply with some new regulations. The Barnstable Police Department has been busy this week. We get an update from Chief Paul McDonald. Plus, we get a look at sports with Brenna McCubry. All this and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, December 10th, 2013. I'm Sarah Mantle. The Barnstable Police Department wants to update regulations for car dealerships in town. The new regulations would make it easier for police to make sure each dealership is following town ordinances. Officer Stephen Marr talked about the proposed new parking plan at this week's licensing authority meeting.
In regards to the parking plans, what we're seeking in this regulation is for the businesses that already have parking plans. So any business that doesn't have one at present, that particular aspect of the new regulations wouldn't come into play unless they had a modification of the license and then had a parking plan as part of their license. So if there's a dealership that's been here for 15, 20, 30 years and they have no parking plan as part of their license, that part of the regulation would not come into play. If a new dealership comes in or someone takes over a dealership and the zoning board and the building department has them go through the process of getting a parking plan, then that part of the regulation would come into effect. When it comes to the parking plan, we're asking that if there is one issued, that they have it available on site so that when we go to do an inspection, we can simply take that and walk the lot. As far as the delineating of spaces, that only comes into play again if there's a parking plan. Secondly, if they have a storage facility where the public is not being brought to view vehicles, we understand that that storage facility basically is going to be used to put as many cars within it as they can. Again, that wouldn't take part as far as delineating lines within that particular part of the parcel.
James Goodwin with Hyannis Honda said some of the regulations concern him, particularly that parking plan.
I came to speak about the vehicle display lines being essentially controlling the way that dealers are able to merchandise their vehicles on the lot. And it was already brought up that inventories are a very fluid thing. At certain times, dealers are pushing the maximum of their parking plans. At other times, they've got a fraction of what they're allowed. If cars are parked just strictly by the lines of the parking plan, at one point, we might look like we're out of business. At other times, it looks like we're flooded with cars. It's the way, the flexibility to park cars, to deal with that, to merchandise them so that we still look good, so that we still are able to merchandise and sell these vehicles is important to us. Even on my lot, at certain times, say with my Civic line, I've got 3 rows of cars. At other times, it's down to 2, but we still look as full, and maybe the cars are at a slight angle, or we're constantly, every week we change the look of our lot. It's merchandising. It keeps people looking, and it's effective. And to take something like that away from the dealers in town is a big deal to the dealers. I really disagree that it is so important to the town that it should be taken away.
Officer Marr responded to those concerns.
I think one of the things that goes along with the parking plan and the delineation of the parking plan is that some of the Class 1 and Class 2 dealers park vehicles outside of their property lines or outside the delineated parking plan. So that would be the first thing that might be an area to look at. In other words, if the parking plan encompasses a certain parking lot, that at a minimum we make sure that those vehicles are within that parking lot. I can think of 2 or 3 different dealerships that park cars too close to the roadway or park cars beyond the curtilage of their particular business. I think if there's spaces delineated and they're allowed 100 cars and only have 50, and they clearly have less cars than they have allowed on their license and they're parking them across spaces, I certainly don't see a problem with that. I think when it comes to an issue is that if they're allowed 100 cars, they're spaced out for 100 cars, and you walk the property, and clearly every single space is full, and there's another 25 or 30 cars parked someplace where there's no line spaces. It makes it a lot easier for us to figure out whether they're over or not. If you walk a property and they're allowed 100 cars, and there's 50 cars, and they're parked across all the line spaces, and there's no extra cars anyplace, then certainly they're within the rights of their license.
The licensing authority requested Officer Marr rewrite the new regulations, taking dealership concerns into consideration. A second public hearing will be held December 30th. The authority is planning to vote on the regulations following that hearing. It's been a very busy week for the Barnstable Police Department. Earlier today, Barnstable This Morning host Sarah Colvin got an update from Police Chief Paul McDonald.
Good. So, Chief, you know, for the past few weeks, we've been talking a little bit about the past week, and it's been quiet. Everything's been good.
Right.
Not the case this past week. A lot of stuff going on in terms of police action.
It's been a very busy week. You know, of course, we had the bank robbery. We had a major search warrant issue with Ilya Zenov. We had another search warrant executed yesterday morning at the International Inn. We had a major fire Saturday night at 174 East Main Street. And, of course, we had an armed robbery yesterday afternoon around noontime. So it's been a very busy week for the Barnstable PD.
So, Chief, let's start by talking about Ilya Zenov, of
Yes.
course. Certainly, you know, no stranger to BPD. He's been arrested a number of times. I understand he's being held right now on $1 million bail.
He was being held on $1 million cash bail. However, now, from what my understanding is, his bail has been totally revoked, so he's no longer eligible for bail. He was out on $200,000 cash bail. He was on the on GPS program. He was under house arrest, and he was only allowed to move from his house to his place of employment, which is a car dealership on Route 6A in Sandwiches, and that was limited to it because the number of serious charges we have out against him right now. During the past several months, I mean, we've had an ongoing investigation with him, and we have made several undercover drug purchases from from his house and from the car dealership, and then we executed a search warrant last Thursday morning. So it was a successful arrest. This is one gentleman we desperately try to get off the street and keep him off the street.
Indeed, and Chief, he was not the only one arrested in that most recent bust, correct?
Right. His girlfriend was arrested. His sister was arrested, and her boyfriend were also arrested. They were downstairs, two were upstairs. Because of the layout of the house and because he's prone to violence, he's a suspect in at least 6 shootings. We did use a Cape Cod SWAT team, and we made entry in the house on 2 different locations. The SWAT team did a great job. They had everybody under arrest within a matter of seconds, so it worked out well.
Indeed. So again, behind bars, no chance of getting out anytime soon.
Well, we had a meeting with the assistant district attorney yesterday. We produced all our evidence to him. Of course, we now have to wait for the drug certification to come back. But we feel we certainly have a rock solid case against him. But again, I mean, this is one of a long line of cases we have pending against him. So hopefully this will do it this time.
Now it's time to take a look at sports with Brenna McCoubry.
Hello everyone, I'm Brenna McCoubry here on Barnstable Today to give you the latest on all things New England and Barnstable sports. Our favorite New England teams have a couple games tonight. The Boston Bruins are still on the road and will play against the Calgary Flames. Puck drops at 9:30. The Boston Celtics are also away and they are in Brooklyn to face the Nets at 7:30. The Celtics come back to Boston tomorrow night to play the Los Angeles Clippers. Game time is at 7:30 p.m. at the TD Garden. Taking a look at what's going on in Barnstable sports, due to the weather, all athletics have been canceled for today. That includes off-site sports such as swimming and ice hockey. Hopefully roads will be clear tomorrow for the girls' JV ice hockey team, who will travel to Notre Dame Hingham for a 4 p.m. game. The boys' JV ice hockey team will be home tomorrow afternoon. They will take on Bourne at 3:30 at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. The boys' varsity ice hockey team will be home for a scrimmage against Mansfield, also at the HYCC. Puck drops at 6 p.m. 20 minutes later at this busy venue, the girls' ice hockey team will have their annual red and white scrimmage. The girls like to start their season off with a friendly game against each other as the varsity team will be split red versus white. That's all today for Barnstable Today. Here for all your sport updates, I'm Brenna McCoubry.
For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.